Joel Klatt is with us on the Alexander Shinara Trial Attorneys Hotline. First of all, Klatt, how are you today, my friend? Everything good?
Good. Yeah. How are you guys doing? What's going on?
Doing awesome. I was watching your game Saturday, and I'm like, who doesn't like to see an interim coach his team up and get an upset? I feel good for Penn State. Indiana's still a fun story. I feel good for Indiana. I didn't feel better for anybody in that game than I did for you, Gus, and the All-American girl. You finally got a fun game to call. That was a fun one.
Man, it was an incredible game. And, Penn State played out of their mind well in the second half, coming back from that deficit. And I thought Indiana was dead to rights. Sack on first down.
Yep.
It was like a minute 30 left, 87 yards to go. I'm like, well, they're going to lose. And then I started thinking to myself, I was about to start going into, okay, well, who's now the second best team in the country? Or, what does this mean, for Indiana and playoff potential? And then sure enough, man, Mendoza made his best throws of the day down the stretch and then capped off by that catch from Omar Cooper. Guys, like that catch from Omar Cooper in the back of the end zone was extraordinary. How high he went to get the ball. The coverage was incredible. From, I think it was Zakee Wheatley who was on him, who's their best defensive back, really. And he's pushing him out of bounds. For him to get that foot down, that blew my mind, man. Well, from my angle, I would just tell you, it looked like he was going to hit his head on the crossbar and that there was a 0% chance that he was in. So when the official put his arms up, I was like, no.
Me too. I thought
that's why I was just dead silent. And I was just like, I'm just going to wait for the replay because the replay is going to show that his foot's out of bounds.
But Klatt, the crazy thing was not only getting the left, but how he kept his right suspended in air.
That's what I was about to say.
That was
the other foot.
That was Matrix-like. Like, I mean, it's one thing to get the tap in. You're going to see that week in, week out. Great catch. But to keep the right foot elevated that's what made it insane.
It was like Prince shooting a fadeaway. He elevated and then just hung. And then he said, game, blouses. It was incredible, man.
Like Purple Rain Prince?
Yeah, it's Charlie Murphy's True Hollywood Stories. I don't expect Dunaway to be the one that understands that reference.
Was there a romantic angle in that one?
Yes, I did not get that one.
You didn't? That's all right. You can Google it. Just Google. You know what?
Google it.
Today,
Google
just Google game blouses and enjoy.
Blouses.
So, Klatt, I was watching that game with SEC fans, specifically Alabama fans, and of course, the narrative was this Indiana team's not that good. And I was like, Penn State on the road is like playing Mississippi State or Kentucky.
It was like Alabama, South Carolina game.
Yeah,
That's
like
100% what that was.
No,
They're better than Mississippi State.
That Penn
Penn
State team is better than Mississippi State.
It was Alabama, South Carolina game.
Okay, Klatt, my point was,
South Carolina.
Unbelievable.
These are still difficult
Klatt.
games to win week in, week out. That was my whole point.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. That point stands.
So I'm just saying, I still think Indiana is an elite team, even with the way they ended up coming back and winning that game.
Yeah, Penn State is more in line with Missouri, not obviously record, but just from a talent perspective and the way that they can compete. And then I think even in the second half, they were playing more like the team that was, within an overtime possession of Oregon. So the only team that has beaten them by more than a possession is Ohio State. All of these games have been a possession. And I thought it was interesting because the one thing I have real concern about Indiana for is their depth. And because they haven't been one of these teams that have recruited in the top 10 year over year, that have depth and have some sustainability. I know the transfer portal has hurt that everywhere, but this is a team that, if you take away a couple of their top line players, where do they go? What is their depth like for this stretch run? And so when Elijah Surratt's not on the field and their left guard Drew Evans is not on the field, and it looked like they were going to get beat, and then lo and behold, they're able to still overcome that. So from that standpoint, that's what was impressive. I do think Penn State, I get it, they're 3-6, but that defense was fantastic on Saturday and played probably their best game that they've played for Terry Smith, their interim coach. And so to win, I thought was a huge plus for Indiana. Obviously, you want to win the football game.
Are they 8-1 with Tyler Warren?
And I'll tell you, I've been in that stadium a bunch, and that was the loudest I've ever heard that stadium.
Wow. Hey, I was going to ask you, they're 8-1 with Tyler Warren. I know they're missing Aller right now, but I just thought Tyler Warren, watching him last year, was such a big part of that offense.
Either Abdul Carter or Tyler Warren, they're 8-1 for sure. In fact, guys, they scored first in overtime, in the first overtime against Oregon. They score. And on third down and 4, I don't know if you remember this play. Dante Moore fumbles the running back exchange and the ball hits the ground. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And the ball is on the ground. They recover it, and two guys kind of dove after it, and the Oregon guy just recovers the football. And then they get the fourth down conversion right after that. And I go back to that, and I showed our crew. We always do a bit of a film session on Friday night, and I showed them a bunch of the film of the teams that we're going to watch and how we should cover it and so on and so forth. And I just kept rewinding that play for them. And I told our crew on Friday night, I was like, this team is that amount away from being number 3 in the country right now and being an 8-1, because the subsequent losses don't happen, because the narrative doesn't build. That's how small it is. I really believe that. So yeah, to your point, Lance, I think it's a good team. And for Indiana, that is a really, really good win for them. And a win now that all of a sudden you look at I say all of a sudden, suddenly you look at Indiana and their road resume. Now they've beaten Oregon on the road, Iowa on the road, Penn State on the road. It's a good resume.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm glad you said that about Penn State, because I'm a firm believer you've got to judge a team by who they are when you play them. And I think Oregon still deserves credit for the Penn State team they beat that day. People keep saying, Oregon, who have they beaten? Because look what Penn State turned into. That Oregon team is really, really, they deserve that Penn State win in all of its glory that it was that day when you're judging resumes, in my opinion.
Let me give you another example, and I think this will hit close to home. Alabama's win over Missouri was more impressive than A&M's win over Missouri.
100%. Yeah, for starting quarterback in one game and a third teamer in the other. Yeah,
that's exactly right. So I think that builds on Jimmy, your point. So Texas A&M, everyone's like, well, look at how great they are. Okay, that's fine. That's a totally different Missouri team that they were able to handle on Saturday than the team that Alabama played. And so this is a fascinating year. I think every single team has a flaw to a major flaw, and then every single team has a strength that I could see carrying them to potentially winning a national championship. For instance, in the SEC, I think it's really about matchup. And I think A&M is a bad matchup for Alabama. Georgia is a good matchup for Alabama. You look up and it's like A&M probably would rather play Ohio State than Indiana. And the reason being is that the specific weakness that A&M has is their run defense. So a team that can exploit that is going to be able to control the game and play on their terms. And a team that isn't is going to have to win in a different way. So that's why it's like A&M's probably a better matchup against Alabama than they are Georgia. But Bama is, sitting there like they probably play Georgia versus A&M because of some of those specific quirks. I think that's what's fascinating about this year is that depending on where the games are played and how the bracket lines up, you could have one of 4 or 5 or 6 teams win the national championship.
Joel Klatt is with us on the Alexander Shunnarah Trial Attorneys Hotline. Michigan is at Northwestern. That is a Wrigley Field game. Have you done a Wrigley Field game before?
No, I have not.
Well, you'll see Klatt's first trip to Wrigley.
I've been to a couple of Cubs games, which is cool. So,
yeah.
Did you ever dream of playing there in your baseball days? Was that one of those places you wanted to check a box?
Yeah, you bet. Although, those dreams quickly evaporated. You know that.
Hey, I know it. Didn't at one point did they not have to switch ends of the field to kick extra points there or something like that? Like they couldn't kick an extra point in one end zone. Am I wrong?
No,
about
they
that?
wouldn't even play offense going in one direction because the wall behind the end line of the goal line was too tight.
Right.
So they didn't want to play offense towards that end zone. So that end zone was so they literally played offense one direction the entire game, I believe.
Okay.
And
I think
maybe
that
you
they've
just don't have a
corrected that.
game there if
Yeah,
you
let's
can't
see.
play offense one direction.
Maybe let's use actual football stadiums, which I know Northwestern does not have one of those currently. I
That
get
used to be
but-
the home
I
stadium
was
for the
gonna
Bears.
say, like,
Yeah.
we're running short of those in Chicago. I'm just letting you know.
Oh, and they've got snow today. So do you know what's?
Oh, don't say that.
Oh,
Don't say
no,
that.
it's
That hurts
bad
my-
snow.
That hurts my
It's
bones.
bad snow. Lance says.
Bad
Yeah.
snow. Like I don't know what the forecast is for next weekend for you guys, but be prepared.
Guys, I am so soft. Oh, gosh.
Southern
I get
California
so
Klatt here.
cold.
You used to play at
Yeah,
Colorado.
this is-
Now it's Southern California Klatt we got here. That's not Colorado.
And I
Klatt.
used to never wear sleaves.
Yeah.
I was like that guy,
A real
like the
man.
punch me in the stomach guy.
Yeah.
And now I get out there and it's like 57 and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like Miami traveling to Pitt in November. Like no chance because they're all out there and they've got like full scuba gear on and Pitt's out there with no shirts.
So tell me your thoughts on the ACC right now,
wow.
because
It's terrible.
I'm
It's
watching
terrible.
Virginia and Louisville lose this weekend, and we know where they
Gross.
are. How do they fit into the playoff discussion? And is there still an old rule that
Well,
possibly
we don't
they
want to
can
get
miss?
sued and have to do an antitrust lawsuit. So, we've got to give them a spot in the playoff, just like the group of 6. So we give these trash teams a spot in the playoff, and then we all fight for the other 10 spots. That's what we've got. The ACC is really bad. I don't know how else to say it, guys. Like, it's not a very good conference. I don't know if there's one team in the ACC that could finish in the top 7 in the SEC, guys. Would you go 7 or would it be 6?
Oh, we just
And
did
then
that,
Probably
Yeah, we did it an hour ago.
no team in the ACC could finish in the top 5 or 6 in the Big Ten.
We did
I think
that.
it's 7 in the SEC, maybe 8, and 6 in the Big Ten at a minimum.
We did that exercise. How deep would you go in the SEC of teams you think could win the ACC? We all agreed on Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, Vandy, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Missouri with their starter with Pribula.
That's where I get like, okay, like like Missouri. Are we healthy?
Yeah. Now,
If they are, they're probably the champion of that. So where are we at? 9?
that's 9. And now, but I haven't said LSU, which I don't know with LSU's offense if they could do it. But boy, with that defense.
They remind me of Miami a little bit, right? Like talented, but what do we get?
Yeah.
That's what gets me is I think Miami and Louisville are probably on paper the most talented team, and there are 5 teams ahead of them in the standings.
Well, Clemson's the most talented. Based on the, based on the actual ratings. But who would have thought? I looked up Saturday, and Clemson and Florida State are playing on the ACC network, and I'm like, good thing they got their larger shares of the revenue.
Hey, how do you – and look, I would think that you probably didn't watch this game, but now if Vanderbilt beats Tennessee, there's a good chance at 10-2 they're going to get in. But 45-38 in overtime, DJ Durkin takes over. Derek Nix takes over 100% of the play calling. Ashton Daniels gets the start, and they have their most offensive output since 2009 in the 2019 in the SEC against Mississippi State. Like, how do you explain this happening overnight with a new coach?
It's really, how do you explain Jerry Neuheisel on UCLA beating Penn State? Remember that? He got the play calling duties on Tuesday. It's similar to that. They dropped a 40 burger on Penn State that day. I think a lot of it can just be a freedom. I think that you start to understand the toxicity that was in the room when you see this big of a turnaround. Some changes you don't see much of a difference, and even like you trail off. Other changes you see this bump in energy, execution, detail, all these things, and you start to get a glimpse into the toxicity that was happening prior. I think that's the only answer. To be quite honest with you, is to look at it and say, like, they weren't bought in. They were clearly on the offensive side, not doing the right things. And so small schematic differences, small coaching differences. You can just be more attentive to details. You can be a little bit different from an energy and execution, and then all of a sudden, it all starts to work. I'm happy for them. I'm happy that they played well. I wish that they would have won that game because I felt like they deserved to win that game in a lot of ways with the way that they had played, and Pavia kind of stuck it out. I'm not a believer in Vandy. They might finish 10-2. I don't like them as a 10-2. I don't think that that's a really good football team. I think Texas handled them. I don't think Alabama played particularly well and still were able to beat them. The score in the Texas game in particular was not indicative of the game being played. And then they got some atrocious calls in their direction that allowed them to continue drives to make that a close game. So I'm not a Vandy guy. I don't think Vandy is a very good football team. There's a lot of other 10-2s that I would take before Vandy.
When Alabama, and they did it again this past week, and I think we've talked about this one other time with you, and I'll ask it differently this time. The sixth time in 9 games they scored with less than a minute to go in the second quarter, going to the locker room. Mm-hmm. And it's the sixth time that's happened. What has to work between the quarterback and the receivers? Because at that point, it's really not the offensive coordinator and the play calling. I know you can talk in the headsets, but it's all less than a minute. They've done it at Georgia, and they did it this past week. They had the defensive touchdown against Tennessee. A lot of offensive things, though, have to go right. You played the position. Talk me through Ty Simpson and those receivers. Why is that working so well for them in that 2 minutes hurry up before the half?
That's a good question. I actually just did a long dissertation about this on my show that released today because of Fernando Mendoza struggling all game. All of a sudden late, he's great. Dante Moore, same thing.
Yes.
Oregon at Iowa, struggles all day. All of a sudden, he's great in a 2-minute setting. And you're asking a similar question here. It's like, why is a team so good in this moment, or get their footing in that moment? Okay, so first and foremost, you get out of all of the normal down, base down schematics. And so there's a weight that is lifted, and you're going to get into some more freewheeling personnel group, formation, and concept. So as a quarterback, you get to cut it loose from first down rather than just waiting until all of a sudden it's a definite passing situation, and then you try to dial something up and throw the football. One of those, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 11, much more difficult to throw the ball and be efficient. The other, 1st and 10, throwing the football and just being freewheeling is better for a quarterback. Then you get into the types of concepts that are being run in the 2-minute scenario, which are, I wouldn't say more vanilla, but they're more black and white, in that you're going to get a lot of what I would call dual field, full field reads, where you're going to pick a side of the field pre-snap. Okay, so rarely are you going to get into the intricacies of like, well, I've got this concept and this alert and this. What you're going to generally have is that you're going to have an open side and a closed side of the field. So you're going to look out there and you got 2 safeties. That's open safety. That's open middle of the field. You're going to play to the wide side or to the boundary, depending on the concept. But you're going to play to one side, and then you're going to read the progression and you're going to let it rip. Okay, maybe there's a zone movement key, but generally speaking, it's like you got this side, boom, here we go. Then you've got a closed side. Middle of the field is closed. There's a single safety. Okay, now I'm going to play the opposite side. Again, I've got my progression or foundation on that side. Boom, I'm going to let it rip. Then what you have is that you've got a personnel group that you're not switching in and out of generally because you're trying to go fast tempo. When you're trying to go fast tempo and you're not switching out of personnel groups, they can't substitute. If you're succeeding and you're not having to huddle and the clock is not stopping, now they're in vanilla defensive looks. So now you're running more black and white concepts that allow you to be more freewheeling, pick one side and let it rip, and they're playing more vanilla concepts on the other side because they can't pressure, they can't substitute, and they can't get a play call in from the sideline. Well, all of these things make it easier for the quarterback to play well. That's why you saw years ago teams start to do this every minute of the game, and we saw high-tempo offense. It was to get all of these things that I'm talking about. And then as a quarterback, when you're sitting in the pocket and you get a completion and then you make a first down, you feel so in control and you're sitting out there and then the defense is on their heels. They're playing more passive. They're playing more vanilla. You're not getting the pressure looks that you're normally getting in an obvious passing situation on 3rd and 10. And you can play better. That's my best explanation is for why it happens. It's not just like, well, the quarterback can cut it loose now. It's all of those other foundational and schematic issues that go into that area or area of the game that allow for teams to all of a sudden have success. And if you're an elite passing team, you can really succeed. And Alabama is an elite passing team. So you start playing vanilla coverage against Alabama, they're going to eat you up, and he's going to eat you up. And unless you get pressure on him, man, like he's excellent.
Speaking of Alabama, they are in a group of 4 teams. Dunaway pointed this out a moment ago. In a group of 4 home teams in the SEC this week, that if they win, it is hard to see them not in the playoffs. Texas A&M hosts South Carolina, where they're almost a 3-touchdown favorite. Alabama hosts Oklahoma, where they're a 6.5-point favorite. Ole Miss hosts Florida, where they're a 16.5-point favorite, and Georgia hosts Texas, where they're a 6-point favorite. All those teams win. All those home teams win, which is not asking a lot, really. It is hard to see a playoff without those 4 teams in it.
Totally agree. Totally agree. The question then becomes, which Texas are we getting?
Yeah.
Can Oklahoma get to Ty Simpson? Because that's a pretty active defensive line, right? And, that defense is a really good defense. So this is a tougher matchup for Alabama than some, because Oklahoma specifically is good in some areas that will give Bama some trouble, namely that active defensive line. It's one of the reasons Joey Aguilar could never get comfortable, and then Tennessee's philosophy screwed him, as I think I told you guys.
Oh, you did.
Week.
Yeah. That was a great breakdown on Tennessee's philosophy. Yeah.
Oh, Tennessee fans not happy.
They didn't like that. How about the Auburn fans on your breakdown of their job? Did they like that?
Mostly peaceful.
Mostly. Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I was you, I'd ever come on our show again.
Yeah. What do we do? What do we do for you?
We set you up sometimes, right?
So
I love coming on your show.
Klatt,
you guys are great.
I think you guys had Wisconsin earlier this year against Michigan, if I'm right. And to say, am I wrong on that? Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right.
Luke Fickell era.
Sorry, I paused only because all I cared about that week was watching Alabama play Wisconsin, and then I was watching Ohio State on the film and just comparing back and forth. It's like, okay, this is what Ohio State did to Wisconsin. This is what. So when I was like, wait, who was Wisconsin playing that week? It was Michigan.
Well, so I had a play on Wisconsin plus 10.5, and I just had a feeling after AD comes out and says Fickell's our guy for the remainder of the year that this would galvanize the team, and it was an awful game. I mean, Wisconsin was 2 of 14 on third downs, 205 total yards, and they won the game. But as bad as this has been a disaster, I just thought it was a cool moment for Luke Fickell winning that first conference game, watching those fans still watching that garbage product. I mean, Fickell's a good coach. It's just been a bad fit, right?
Yes, and more specifically, he hired the wrong offensive coordinator initially and tried to change the philosophy too drastically. You see, what had succeeded at Wisconsin wasn't, it was Paul Chryst or this style of – it was offensive line play. They succeeded because of offensive line play. And when they went to the Phil Longo air raid offense, they lost their connection to that offensive line play. Bob Bostad was their coach for a long time. Really good coach, offensive line coach. So he leaves. Guess where he went, guys?
Where?
Indiana.
Oh,
Bob Bostad is at Indiana.
There you go.
And that's why their offensive line is so much better, and they can run the football. You see that these are imperative things. And so what happened is they lost offensive line players in the portal because they came to play a very specific style. And then all of a sudden the air raid doesn't work out because you can't just change to the air raid at Wisconsin. There are no athletes. I'm sorry about this, but you can do it at almost any Texas school because every single high school in Texas is running that offense. So what do you have? Wide receivers galore, quarterbacks galore. You try to change the air raid in Wisconsin and all those high schools up there look at you and they're like, I'm sorry, you want me to do what? Throw the football more than 13 times? Yeah, we don't do that. So that fit was wrong. And now he's trying to correct that by bringing in Jeff Grimes, the former Baylor offensive coordinator, and a guy that wants to run a more pro-oriented offense and get back to Wisconsin principles and it's going to take some time. So he made a mistake with an offensive coordinator. He's trying to correct that. Now, Chris McIntosh, the athletic director, I've talked with him, and basically it comes down to this, guys. He wants to give Luke a real opportunity to make this switch, and it's a really thin pool to be on the second tier of openings this year. We're already sitting there, and it's like, who's Penn State going to hire? Like, Lane is going to get the job he wants. I've been told that LSU and Ole Miss have offered him a blank check and said, you write in the number. And he is contemplating still negotiating with Florida because Florida is intriguing for him. So, like, he's the apple of the eye. When he leaves or doesn't leave, what are the dominoes that falls? What does Eli Drinkowitz do? What does Clark Lee do? Are people going to start to look at Jim Mora at UConn, who's done an incredible job at UConn? Justin Wilcox at Cal. Does Pat Fitzgerald get back into this thing? What do we do with Alex Golish? And if you're Wisconsin and you look at the top tier jobs that are available, and then you start to look around and you're like, well, who would I be replacing Luke Fickell with? There's not an upgrade. So let him switch. Let him switch. And in terms of offense and philosophy, and see what he can do and build and invest into the roster. Because Luke Fickell still went to a playoff. I don't think that this guy forgot how to coach. So to your point, that was cool on Saturday, and a devastating loss for Washington after they felt like they were building towards potentially being a 9-2 football team hosting Oregon in the last week of the season with maybe a playoff spot on the line. And now that's out the window for Jed Fish. I think Jed's focusing on other jobs too. I think he wants Florida, and that was a distraction for them.
Sad. Speaking of Phil Longo, his Sam Houston State team wins in Corvallis, Oregon State. For some reason, I've always loved watching that team play up in the Pacific Northwest, and for Sam Houston to go in and beat Oregon State 21-17, it's a sad program.
Tough
now.
Look, man.
I hope it comes back somehow, some way.
Jonathan Smith might be. You don't know what his status at Michigan State is going to be, and you could get the
return.
The return.
Mike Riley did it.
Yeah, Riley did it. Who's doing it right now? Scott Frost is doing it right now.
That's true.
Petrino did it twice in Louisville. John Robinson.
Rich Rodriguez. is doing it right now.
There's a lot more examples than you would initially think.
Robinson did it back in the day at USC. Walsh did it at Stanford.
If the DeBoer thing doesn't work out, Mike Shula is unemployed.
Wow.
Yeah. Lance.
I mean,
It's
guys,
guerrilla warfare.
Take me into give me a heat check on. We were having conversations about winning the $1 billion Powerball to buy out Kalen DeBoer after the Florida State game. Now where are we at with DeBoer?
I think
Alabama fans, they love him.
What would you say?
Now we're in.
No. Give me the percentage Alabama fan percentage approval rating.
85.
I think.
80, oh wow!
I think
really that high?
I think 85 is a good number.
Right now, hey, if they lose to Oklahoma this weekend,
how it goes.
Then it's we can't run the football. We've got no shot. Then it quickly falls.
Yeah. I mean,
Their passing game is so good, man. I love it. And when it's on, like that first half against LSU was great. My concern with Alabama is that when that's not great, I'm like, all right, what else do we got here? Because it stagnates. Right? We see that. We saw that in the second half last week. We saw that in the second half against Georgia.
Every second
them to
half.
come back in that game.
Yeah,
Go look at the second half numbers.
Yeah,
it's so different. Second half numbers, halftime adjustments have been. Whew.
But I think what's helping you here, Klatt, though, what's helping Alabama is their defense has turned into a really good defense.
It's a good defense.
Yeah. And that's they don't have the run game they need, but they've got the defense they need for a game like you're talking about, where Simpson may not be in his A+ game.
Yeah, I think that's a fascinating conversation. Is like, what happens when someone rolls out there with an elite pass rusher like Cassius Howell? Like, to attack A&M, you got to run the football. Do you know A&M's 132 out of 136 in rushing yards per carry allowed on defense if you strip out sacks? I know there was a lot of predicates in there, but I hate the sack numbers going against rushing numbers. So if you just look at what is your defense when you turn around and put the ball in the stomach of the running back, A&M is 132 out of 136, giving up 5.5 per. So to me, you've got to be able to run the football. Can Bama do that? Because they're A&M is much better against the pass. Cassius Howell's an elite pass rusher. That's where I was going earlier in our conversation about matchup. They've got to figure out some way to be better running the football.
Is it scheme or talent?
I think, honestly, it's mostly scheme and emphasis. When you're that good throwing the football and have been for that long, even I remember thinking about this with Washington. You know, look at the Penix year at Washington. I know their rushing numbers weren't terrible, but there's not an emphasis. See, you achieve what you emphasize in this sport and in life. And Kalen doesn't do that. You know, like that's not what they do and what they are. So I think it's mostly emphasis. Everyone runs the same stuff, so it's not scheme. It's how do you develop a mentality to run the football? And I don't think that they've got a great mentality.
He is Joel Klatt. You will see Joel, Gus Johnson, the All-American girl from Wrigley Field, Michigan at Northwestern. Massive game for the Maize and Blue, who still control their own destiny to the Big Ten championship game. Believe it or not, if they can win this one, that is the big noon kickoff on Fox.
I mean, imagine them squeaking by, or you know, this is going to be a tough game, but imagine them at 9-2, having won 4 in a row, hosting Ohio State with a chance to knock them out, go to the Big Ten championship game, go to the playoff.
It could happen. Could happen. You could see the first part of that against Northwestern Saturday at 11 o'clock Central in the Big Noon Kickoff. Klatt, thank you very much. Have a great week. Always good
Appreciate
to talk to you.
Guys.
Yeah, buddy. We'll see you.
Friend of the show, Chip Lindsey, still the OC up there.
Friend of the show, Chip
That's
Lindsey.
not a good team.
Yeah, that's not a compliment.
Not a good team, by the way. Klatt knows it.
Klatt is getting out of here on that one. Joel Klatt was with us on the Alexander. That look. The Alexander.
True. They're not a good team.
Alexander Shannara Trial Attorneys Hotline.